I'm May. Sitting here on my balcony, watching the sky turn a warm shade of orange, I'm finally at peace. It's been a wild ride, and the events that led me here were a real eye-opener. A week ago, I received a postcard in the mail. No return address, but I recognized my mother's handwriting immediately. We didn't raise you to be this cold, this public, this vindictive. We're hurt. Leo's embarrassed. Your father's ashamed. I hope it was worth it. I placed it beside my keyboard, not because I relished the pain, but because it was proof that they finally saw the fire they'd always ignored. Let me take you back to how it all began. I'm from a middle-class family. My parents, Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, have always had a certain way of looking at family. My dad is a traditional man, believing that family means putting others first, sometimes to the point of neglecting oneself. My mom, on the other hand, is passive, often going along with my dad's decisions without question. I'd been planning a trip to Hawaii for 6 months. I'd saved every bonus from my job as a graphic designer. I'd made all the bookings, the tickets, an ocean front suite, and an all-inclusive package. It was supposed to be a celebration, my first paid vacation for the family. 2 days before the flight, my dad handed me an envelope with my name on it. Inside was a printed cancellation notice. Your seat's going to Leo, he said, as if it were a great honor. Leo is my sister Lily's fiancé. He's 28, jobless, loud, and has never shown an ounce of gratitude. I stared at the paper, blinking in disbelief. You're serious? I asked. My dad nodded, looking like it pained him, but then he said, family means sacrifice. He's marrying in, it's his turn to feel welcome. My mom just sat on the couch, folding laundry, and whispered, it's better this way. If you think I broke down and cried, you're wrong. I didn't yell, beg, or even raise my voice. I simply nodded and said, thanks for letting me know. My dad smiled, relieved, thinking I'd passed some unspoken test. But what he didn't know was that the trip was in my name. The reservations, the upgrades, the points, everything was mine. He assumed that because I was quiet, I'd let it go. Little did he know that I was already logging into the resort's back-end guest system. I updated the primary contact and prepared a little surprise for the hotel concierge. If Leo wanted the seat that badly, he could have it. But the view, the room, and the perfect itinerary? I was about to turn their paradise into a nightmare. They boarded the flight without me. Dad sent a photo from the gate, all smiles with leis in their hands. Leo threw up a peace sign, looking like he'd just landed a huge deal instead of stealing my seat. Mom captioned it, Ohana vibes only, with a yellow heart emoji. I stared at the screen and then opened the resort's dashboard. Everything was still under my control. My dad never bothered to check who the reservations were tied to. He thought buying the plane tickets gave him power, but the room, the activities, and the meal credits were all linked to my email, my rewards number, and my card. I didn't cancel the reservation right away. Instead, I made some subtle changes. I downgraded the suite to a basic garden view twin room. No refund, just a reassignment. I removed the catamaran cruise from the itinerary and rebooked the snorkeling trip under my friend's name. And then, I added a note to the reservation, guests have been flagged for violating hotel policies on a previous stay. Please handle with discretion and confirm ID upon check-in. It wasn't true, but it was enough to cause some friction. That evening, they checked into the downgraded room. No ocean view, no king-sized bed, and no welcome champagne. Leo texted me, hey, did you mess something up with the hotel? This room's not what Dad said. I didn't reply. Instead, I posted an Instagram story of myself at a local spa, wearing a robe and sipping a glass of sparkling cider. The caption read, sometimes the best trips are the ones you don't take. Mom and Dad viewed the story, and Leo blocked me. But I wasn't done. The next morning, Dad called. His voice on the voicemail was tight and controlled. May, the hotel says there's a charge dispute. Our room key stopped working. Can you call them? Just fix it. Fix it? As if I was their assistant, when they'd erased me from my own gift. I sipped my coffee and tapped into the resort dashboard again. With just a few clicks, I paused the room's digital access. Suddenly, their key card was useless. Meanwhile, on the resort's public Wi-Fi, I saw a new TripAdvisor review. Written by OceanDad77, it said, "Check-in staff were rude. Room was not as expected. Total mess." I couldn't help but laugh. They could use my money, but they didn't want to use my name. Leo's Instagram went quiet. No more shirtless beach selfies or mojito boomerangs. Just a blurry story of him sitting in the lobby, captioned waiting with a face rolling eyes emoji. By noon, the front desk sent an email asking me to verify the reservation ownership. I replied politely and legally, "The guests listed are unauthorized. I won't be covering any additional charges." Then I forwarded the email to the rewards team with a note, "Please block this profile from accumulating any points during their stay." This was an unapproved guest substitution. That evening, Mom texted me, "Why are you doing this?" I didn't reply. Instead, I posted a quote on my story, "If sacrifice is expected but never returned, it's not family, it's performance." By day 3, they stopped pretending. There were no more photos or Aloha family captions. Just silence, like a power outage in our group chat. Then, I got a call from the hotel's concierge. "Hi, Miss Thompson. The guests have expressed confusion about their account. They attempted to book a couple's massage, but their resort credit is invalid." I almost felt bad, but then I remembered all the sacrifices I'd made. I calmly replied, "They're not authorized users. If they'd like to pay out of pocket, they're welcome to." 2 hours later, Leo sent a long, barely punctuated text. "Look, I didn't ask to take your spot, okay? They offered, and I just said, yeah, you are. Dad made the call, not me. You need to grow up. This is so petty. It's just a trip, all right? Just a trip." But he didn't understand. I'd worked 23 hours of overtime, skipped eating out for 4 months, and cut my own birthday budget to make this family getaway happen. I didn't respond to Leo. Instead, I Venmo'd $10 to one of the resort staff accounts, a kind woman I'd spoken to when booking. The note said, "For your kindness and for the stress I know my family is causing you." Because if someone had to deal with their entitlement meltdown, they deserved a little extra sunshine. Later that night, Grandpa called. He always seemed to know when something was off. "You're not there?" he asked. "Nope," I replied. He sighed and said, "I figured something was wrong. Your dad's been posting sunset photos, but his face looks like someone stole his flip-flops." I smiled and said, "You always taught me, never punish with anger. Just let people live inside what they built." He chuckled and said, "Well, they're living in it now, baby. Keep standing tall." 4 days later, they landed home, sunburnt, silent, and $1,900 over budget. I saw the receipt. Dad tried to put the extra charges on my card, but I'd frozen it the day they boarded. Mom was the first to break the silence. She called while I was folding laundry. "I just don't understand why you're being so cold, May." I listened as she said, "We didn't mean to hurt you. We just thought Leo needed to feel included. You always act like everything has to be fair." I looked at the speakerphone and calmly said, "Mom, I didn't need it to be fair. I just needed to not be erased." She exhaled and said, "He's family now." I nodded and said, "And family means sacrifice, right? Then consider this mine." I opened my notes app and started writing a post. I'd saved $31,400 to give my family their dream vacation, and 2 days before departure, they'd given my seat away to a man who'd never paid for a single dinner. I didn't shout, I just took back what was mine. I added photos of my original booking receipt, the itinerary, a screenshot of the reservation change, and a picture of me smiling in my apartment with takeout sushi and a glass of wine. The caption was, "Some trips are more peaceful when you stay home, especially when you take the peace with you." The next morning, the post had over 18,000 shares and hundreds of comments. Women were saying, "You're the villain in their story, but the hero in mine." Even some wedding planners DM'd me, saying, "Just bookmarked this as a case study in boundaries." Iconic. Leo deleted his account that afternoon. Mom texted, "You're humiliating us." I replied with a single heart emoji. The story spread like wildfire. There were TikToks, Reddit threads, and even a podcast episode titled, "When the Family Mooches Off You, a Hawaiian Horror Story." Then came the guilt parade. Aunt Sarah called first, saying, "I had no idea they did that to you, honey. You know you've always been the responsible one." Uncle Tom said, "You should have told me. I would have helped cover the trip, so you could still go." But where were they when I was skipping lunches to build the fund? My sister Lily called, her voice full of venom wrapped in fake sweetness. "May, do you feel better now? Embarrassing your own parents online?" I calmly asked, "Do you feel better taking a vacation funded by someone else's sacrifice?" She was silent for a moment, then spat, "You've always been dramatic." I smiled and said, "No, I've just always kept track." Dad showed up at my apartment unannounced. He said, "I came to talk." I leaned on the doorframe and didn't invite him in. He looked around, as if expecting the old me to step forward and forgive him. He started, "I know we made a mistake. I thought giving the seat to Leo would make him feel part of the family." I asked, "And what about me? Was I part of the family, too?" He looked away and said, "No, I didn't realize you'd make it public." I laughed sharply and said, "There it is. The truth." He said, "You embarrassed us." I replied, "No, you embarrassed yourselves. I just stopped hiding it." He asked, "Do you really think a vacation is worth tearing this family apart?" I leaned closer and said, "You tore it when you taught me I was only valuable when I gave everything away." I handed him a manila envelope with printed bank statements, proof of every dollar I'd spent, and confirmation of every change I made. The note said, "This was never a vacation. It was a test. You failed." He stood there, speechless, as I gently closed the door. That night, I lit a vanilla-scented candle I'd bought for myself. Sitting on the balcony, I finally felt free. I was done being the disposable one, the "you understand" girl. I'd stopped being their definition of family and started being mine. And as I looked out the window, I knew that this was just the beginning of a new chapter, a chapter filled with peace and self-respect.